Hey everyone, welcome to season two. I am so happy I can say season two. Like, look at all of this content and content with a purpose, right? So, season two is focused on breathe deep. Breathe deep is a framework that I have used that saved and transformed my life as a new mom, and I'm now ready to share that with you. So, the first guest of season two is a dear friend of mine, Jessica. And
Hello,
so she is
hello.
here. If you're watching, she is here, and if you're listening, you hear her as well. So, this is Jessica Luzincourt. I will have her introduce herself. So, yeah, Jessica, take it away.
Hey, I am Jessica. I am Leslie's friend. Okay. I'm a mother of three. Um, and I'm a Black mom, and and all that comes with it. But thank you for having me. I'm so honored to be here today and just really kiki and talk about like what we know how to do best, which is being moms.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and we're gonna kiki with a purpose.
Yeah.
Kiki with a purpose for sure. Can you tell everyone, yes, you are a Black mom as well as I am too. What are your, qualifications? They matter, they don't matter, but
Hmm.
you are very well versed. Like you have taught me so much about being Black in America, about being first generation in America.
Mm.
So can you tell people like what qualifications that you have to let the people know?
Okay, so outside of uh, life, first generation life experience, but I also have a background in social work, um, and I've been working in the career for probably a little bit over 15 years. History in healthcare, nonprofit, and now I'm doing disease. Oh, kind of. I'm doing disaster relief, emergency management, which is like my new little passion right now. I need to stop doing that. It's a great passion. It's a great passion.
Yes, yes. Yeah, don't
um,
minimize it.
yeah, I don't want to minimize it. And then I think I am woke. I was woke before woke
Mhm.
was a thing. Before I was woke, before woke became woke, and then and before it was demonized. Um,
Yeah, what
yes,
happened? That is a whole nother conversation, but
that's a
I just saw that. Yeah.
yeah, because now it's like a euphemism for to me. It's just a euphemism of for black and queer and whatever. That's what it is now. But um, yeah, I kind of went through, I'm a product of my time, went through like the MySpace. I was natural before natural was a thing. And so like going through that journey, I went through like my whole tech phase. And then I ended up on the other side of it. But that's kind of like, I would hate to say that's a hobby of mine because of the fact that I love history. I'm uh constantly decolonizing, deconstructing some of the values that I was taught, only because I just want to know what the origin and if it's something that's beneficial for me, and that's something that I'm trying to do as a mom too, and just really meeting people and checking my bias and also educating people, even if they don't feel like it sometimes. But it has been a success so far when people are receptive to just learning a little bit more. I don't know everything, but I'm one of those people that if I don't know, I'm definitely going to take the time to find out. So,
Yes, yes, and she knows almost everything, it feels like.
I do not.
No,
I'm a,
I'm just being
uh,
silly.
I just know a lot and a master of nothing. Like I just like to. I just go like, oh, that's interesting, and I do like a good Google search and stuff, and then um, I used to really read a lot for leisure. It's just been really hard now, just juggling so much. But I just love. I don't know if that's part of my sign or whatever. I just love new knowledge and learning things, and then but then also the act of teaching other people, and just seeing that like aha moment when people have, like, I'm addicted to that. So yeah, it's just something that I really, really enjoy.
And that's important. Going back, so Jessica shared with us that she's a social worker, everyone. And me being by trade a registered nurse, I understand the importance of social work, but I didn't fully understand how important it was until I met Jessica. Because being a registered nurse, we do the physical stuff, we give you the medication, all of that. But then once you go home, or even if it's not a home situation, it might be a crisis situation after a hurricane, social workers are pivotal, they're needed. And I think it's wonderful because you said you've been a social worker for over about 15 years. So this was before you had your kids.
Right, right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can you explain then, like, is there any ties of being a mom and a social worker? Like, is there any, you know?
Well, yes, when I was in school for social work in the beginning,
Mhm.
before I had kids, but I was transferring as I was, long story short. So I was in healthcare and retail back in like high school, college. And then once I met my advisor, because
Mhm.
I wanted to become a psychologist.
Mm.
And yeah, so and I was towards the end of my AA degree, so I just needed an elective. And I
Mhm.
met, she's actually a mentor of mine now. Like I'm that's number one thing about navigating through your career, is find the people who are doing the things that you really want to do and connecting with
Mhm.
them.
Yes.
Um, because I never like to get stuck, and every time I do feel
Yeah.
stuck, I just look at someone and I'm like, hey, I kind of like that, and I kind of try to
Mhm.
engage with them. But what she basically told me was like they had just introduced social work into the school, and she explained to me that, I know you want to be a psychologist, but you're not going to be able to practice until like you're a doctor,
Yeah.
and you become a doctor, and you won't be able to like do any medication, prescribe any medication or anything. But social work is kind of like go hand in hand, except you're not only uh, addressing the psychology of the person, you're also looking about their environment and those things that kind of
Mm.
impact the person too. And then she said, and then on top of, not only can you do therapy, but you can also do XYZ. So it was kind of just like a happenstance that I ended up going into social work. I took the electives, fell in love with it. Um, and that's also when I was also like minoring Africana studies. And I remember in my social
Mm.
work class, I uh, did a project about, oh my God, I can't remember the name. Oh, I was boycotting BET around that time. So like I was in class and like with a sea of white people,
Mhm.
talking about, as a black person, boycotting BET, but I had a reason, because I was like, it was not doing anything beneficial for black around that time for black communities,
Right.
and I just felt like it was just being like, here's our one opportunity to be able to
Right.
show the vastness of blackness.
Mhm.
And that was around the era where they took all like the Teen Central stuff out, they took all the Caribbean stuff out. It was just ass shaking all the time,
Yeah.
which I partake in and I enjoy. I just did. I just, so yeah, so I was just basically enlightened during that time. And then that's what happened. I just started, in the beginning, I worked with foster kids, um, and managing. I was a home parent. Basically, it's like you're the parent that lives in the home with the foster children. So you kind of like do their day to day.
Mm.
So I learned a lot about mental illness um,
Before
and
you had kids. So you were
before I
like a
had
home
kids.
parent before you had kids. So would you say that shaped like the mother that you became?
Yes, it did. It did. Social work actually goes hand in hand in the way that I parent, because of the
Mm.
fact that a lot of the skill sets that I learned is about human development.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things where I'm like, that I've learned in social work that it does definitely trickle into the way that I parent. There was an internship that I had when I was during my schooling, but this is after I had children. Um, the children were like maybe 2 or 3, and they were very self-sufficient. They were making their beds, and they were eating with forks and knives, and they were 2 or 3. And
Mhm.
in my culture, it was like you have to baby a child until they can kind of
Yeah.
like, well, you know. And then so it also taught me like, I really, my kids are very I hate to use the word now, but articulate. And I think the reason why
Hmm.
is because I've always spoken to them
Yeah.
like I didn't speak to them like babies, and these are skill sets that I've learned through social work. So yeah, like, and also, not to like, when I one thing about being a mother, I had a high risk pregnancy. If
Hmm.
my first son was a 24 weeker. He was born at 1.1 pound 7 ounces. And when I tell you that social worker at that in the NICU changed my entire life, like, she got me together because I was just I was just floating. And I part of my personality,
Hmm.
sometimes when I get really, really stressed, I kind of just disassociate, and I
Yeah.
just so that's one of my coping mechanisms. But she did, when I tell you everything, like from the therapies that my son needed, finding the
Mm.
doctors, she just told me how to navigate through disability. And it was like, oh my God, like, this is what social workers do. They're
Mm.
really
And
are just a.
you were a social worker when you were pregnant, when you had your son, your first child, right?
I was, yes, I was going to school. So, but she kind of
Okay.
cemented that for me, like
Mm.
completely cemented, like, okay, now I really know what impact that a social worker can be in someone's life. Because she
Mm.
definitely, I don't even remember her name at this point, but she was such a, I, it was just, I don't know how the words to describe, but it was such a pivotal moment in my life.
Mhm.
And how she was able to get me out of the darkness. She kind of just, I kind of
Mm.
just followed her, and I floated behind her as she like guided me to how to parent a, a child with disabilities. So
Yeah.
it was amazing, amazing.
That's beautiful, and I really like how you share that because now it leads us into, like, motherhood and you had this resource. Because one thing about you is you're very resourceful, and I know it's because, well, being first generation, we share that in common. You kinda
Mhm.
have to be resourceful,
Right.
um, but also because you're a social worker, you just know where the resources are.
Mhm.
And so going now into your, like, let's talk about it. Your birth story with your first child, you said he was 24 weeks. And for those that don't know anything about babies, maybe you're a new mom, maybe you're thinking of becoming a mom, pregnant, whatever it is, the baby typically should stay in the belly for 40 weeks. So her first baby was only in her belly for half of the time and came out prematurely, which is
Mhm.
very scary, with only a pound or like and change. So
Mhm.
probably did he fit in your hand? Like if
Oh
you were.
yeah, he was tiny, like, and uh, his skin was like translucent, so you can actually see his
Mm.
organs.
Oh my
It
god.
was tough, but you couldn't tell me nothing. That was my baby, okay? Like, I was just. And they were like, I remember my sister uh came. Um, that's another thing. I had such amazing support. I did have complications during my pregnancy. I had a condition called incompetent cervix. It's basically your cervix is usually your cervix starts to open towards the end of your pregnancy to prepare to give birth, whereas mine was opening in the beginning of the pregnancy. So it's kind of like my body was just it was not holding the baby, couldn't support the growth. And we tried a lot of things. I had cerclages, I did everything, and he still came. I was on hormones, I did everything. But he still came. You know, he's my little miracle child. He was like, I'm ready to come
Yeah.
now. So he came. But he was in the hospital for about, I want to say 118 days.
Jeez.
Yeah, he was there for, and we were there. We lived there. Another resource, we were at the Ronald McDonald House. That's where we would sleep.
Um,
Um, um,
did your
and
insurance pay for that? Did your insurance pay for you to stay in the Ronald McDonald House?
yes, I believe so. Because I don't remember paying for any, I think in the beginning, yes. But
Mm-hmm.
once he was born, again, my social worker, because which I didn't know, applied for us to go to be in, to receive disability. And then from there, uh, it was because, and another thing with Ronald McDonald, you're not secured. Like it's not like you get to live there. You every day that you're there, you have to apply and see if you get in.
Oh,
At least that was what it was back then.
right. Yeah.
Um,
And
oh,
that's
and I was sleeping.
stressful.
It's very stressful because it was like um,
Mm-hmm.
I was in school during that time. Uh, Hold on 1 second. I'm doing a video. I can't. I'll call you back. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'll call you back. Okay. Thank you. That's my micro freebie.
No,
uh,
don't. Mm.
yeah. So I forgot. Yeah, during that time, yeah, it was difficult because you had to like register and then and hope it's kind of almost like a lottery and hopefully you would be able to come in. Um,
Jeez.
it was tough. And honestly now I'm revisiting. I,
Yeah.
I was just like this. Like it
Mm-hmm.
was like I just want to
Mm-hmm.
take this baby home. That
Yeah.
everything, like again, the social worker was the person that, like, of course the nurses, the radiologists,
Mm-hmm.
the doctors,
Right.
um, were all amazing, but like that social worker was kind of like held me up to be able
Yeah.
to like deal with everything that was going on around that time.
Right. And so at that time, were you, well, okay, this leads into the questions. I'm just going to get into the questions. What
Mhm.
does it mean to be gentle with ourselves, especially as Black moms? Because the title of this episode, well, it's going to be something in the title saying like, be gentle with yourself. So what does that mean?
It honestly, and just to pick from your title, it's just taking a breath, giving yourself grace. Um, I think being a mother has taught me that outside of being a mother, I'm a woman first. I'm not
Yeah.
perfect, and um, and that's something that me realizing that even allowed me to have a better relationship with my mother, because I think,
Mm.
especially when you're Caribbean, like it's like, hey, the only gift a parent could give you is life. Okay,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you are very lucky to be here. So then there was almost like a godlike
Mm-hmm.
relationship that you have with your mom. Like there's a level of respect that you had. But then once I became a mother, and like even when I would have complaints about certain things that happened in my childhood, I realized, oh, she's just trying to figure it out. So I think the number one thing about being a mom is really just giving yourself grace,
Mm-hmm.
and realizing that you're not perfect. The judgments of other mothers, which is a big one, navigating to raising your children, just knowing that you're trying your best. And even if you are not the best at doing it, but you're trying, I think that's honestly enough, you know?
It is. It is. And that's such a great answer. And part of the reason I asked, Jessica to come on today is because when I think of being gentle as a new mom, you're the first person that comes to my mind because, my little backstory when I had my second child, when I had my daughter, Violet, I don't even know. It was just a bunch of like mush in my brain. Like I don't know what was going on. It was very cloudy. And I remember like it was yesterday. I was sitting in my room and I was on my phone or I had my phone, and I think I was trying to breastfeed her. I don't remember, but I was holding her, and you texted me, or she was like on the bed, like there. And you texted me and you said, "Hey, Lesline," you're like, "How are you doing?" And don't just say, "Okay." And that just, I don't know. It just, I do know, and that's why we're here right now. It just really was, it was very, I felt very seen because I was like, I'm not okay. I had a second child that wasn't planned very quickly because my kids, like I've said on other episodes with you all, my kids they're Irish twins. So they were very close together, not enough time to like recuperate postpartum from my first pregnancy. So it was just, it was a lot. And so when Jessica was like, how are you doing? And just say, okay, that is, when people are like, check on your strong friends, like that is the best example of checking on your strong friends, like checking on your, and I don't even consider myself a strong friend. I'm just a quiet friend. It can say I'm just a quiet friend. And Jessica's very good of like checking in, like, hey, so she sent that message, and I remember I wrote back. I was like, hey, can you send me, like, invite me to that group, to a Facebook group that we're both in called Black Moms of Orlando, which again, like I shared with you all, Jessica's very resourceful. So when I was pregnant, she was talking about this group nonstop. She's like, it's the greatest thing. It's so fun, blah, blah, blah. And so when she asked me, fast forward, like, a year later, pretty much, how are you doing? Don't just say, okay. I was like, can you send me that group again? Like, can I be in that group? I didn't understand that what I was saying is that I need community. Like I was hungry for community. I didn't know that's what I was like saying, but I was just like, I need that group. And then yeah, so I just wanted to share that because Jessica was very gentle with me. She wasn't like, well, this is what it is. You're a mom now. Kiss your life goodbye. She was like, okay, Leslie, like, and she, like held me, if you will, because that's something else I feel like is, I feel like once, it depends on the relationship you have with your parents. But I know with my experience, it's like, okay, you have the kid, you live in your house, like, my parents, I'm done raising you. And I feel like once you become a mom, like you need that support,
Right.
right? And I needed that. I didn't have it from like, I did have support, but I needed that like moms like me. There we go. I needed moms that were my age that were like, look, girl, this is how parenting is now. Okay. Like, but not having judgment, which is something you said earlier, Jessica, is like being around moms that aren't going to judge you, but at the same time will check you, but at the same time be gentle. Like, and that's what you do. That's what you do very, very eloquently. That's something I feel like you're gifted with. And that's what I feel like makes you a great social worker, a great mother, a great friend of mine, is that you know how to talk to people in a gentle way. Because I feel like as Black women, we don't talk to each other gentle enough.
Right.
At least that's how my experience was coming up. So
Right.
that's why I was always quiet. That's why I was always quiet. And I was like, well, I don't want to say anything because I don't want to hear the judgment.
And the thing, and honestly, as Black women, maybe in the last 5 years, we're on that like, hey, I don't need to be strong, because I think Black women also have, um, I think, similar to the pressures that men have in patriarchy, where they have to be like the masculine one, they have to be the provider, they have to whatever. But we as Black women also have that, right? Like you have to be the strong Black woman. You have to be able to get the degrees and then raise these perfect kids and like, and then be beautiful, be flawless, because the beauty of Black women is that we're always on the yes and we love you and we support you, but also like, hey, get it together, which is also good because you get that check. But there's also points where like I do need to be soft sometimes. I need to be able to look at someone and be like, look, don't tell me you're okay. I know you're, you know, like, don't tell me you're okay. I want you to be able to take those walls down and let's express what you're really feeling. And
Mm,
especially after giving birth and being a new mom. And that's something that I didn't really get, or I didn't get to receive. And
mm.
but
That's,
I go ahead.
I don't mean to cut you off, but that goes into this next
Yeah.
question then. Do you remember the first 2 weeks with your newborn, with the twins? Like, do you remember those 2 weeks? Like, what was going through your head? Because like I shared in my story with how when you texted me and were like, how are you doing? Don't just say okay. I'm pretty sure it was within that 2 week period.
Hmm.
So that's something that I remember. So do you remember, like, can you share with the audience what was going through your head?
Honestly, I'm gonna tell you, like, again, I think that's part of my coping mechanism. I really disassociate. I actually, when I okay, so I all my pregnancies have been high risk. So after I gave birth, I had twins that were supposed to, who I couldn't even connect with because the doctors told me that due to the history of me having an incompetent cervix, there's no way that my twins would be able to survive. And if they did, they're gonna be preemies. Completely opposite. Like I literally went to the hospital and lied to them and was like, I don't know what's happening. Something's leaking. Like, just get these babies out of me, because it came to the point where, like, because I was high risk, I had weekly appointments with my doctors,
Mhm.
and they would be like, "You're still pregnant?" I'm like, "I am." Uh,
I used to
but
hate that question. Sorry.
so like, they're like, "You're still pregnant?" I'm like, But what ended up happening after the twins was completely different. Because with Jeremiah, because he was so small, even though it was a vaginal birth, I didn't feel the effects on it for my body, because I guess because he was so tiny.
Yeah.
Fast forward 2, 3 years later, giving birth to the twins, my body was a wreck. I felt like I was hit by a truck,
Mm,
and not even a truck, a train. Like, hit by a
mm,
train, and it just kept rolling over. Like, it was,
mm,
I could not function, my hips, sciatica, everything. And then after giving birth, a week later, I had Bell's palsy,
mhm,
which the whole left side of my face was completely paralyzed. I was in a very dark place because I have newborns. I had one, I couldn't latch the babies. Um, my eye couldn't blink, so I developed an ulcer. So I was blind in one eye for a little bit. It was just the worst. So yeah, that first, I don't know if my first 2 weeks is compared to like the majority of people. I'm still very blessed, but it was a nightmare. It was just, I don't even can remember
mhm,
everything that I was going through because it was just really tough. Um, but I do want to speak on the fact that, like, when you are pregnant and when you are giving birth, there's a celebration of the birth. There's a baby shower. There's, the gender reveal. There's this, there's that, which, but then no, there's never, you're only as good as how you associate to that baby.
ooh.
Once that baby comes, it's radio silent. Like, you're like, where's this village that everybody's talking about, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
like, again, I am blessed because I had my mother-in-law. I don't live in an area where I'm close to my family, so I would have my
Mhm,
mother-in-law come and visit. My mom was there with me, but because I had a toddler and two newborns, it was
mhm.
just impossible. Then my one of my twins got sick, had to go back to the hospital, so I stayed
Oh,
with him for like a week and a half at the hospital because he couldn't regulate his temperature, which caused me not to be able to produce enough milk for both babies
yeah.
because I was with it was insane. But I think that's the part. That's why when I did text you, is that
Mhm,
I do remember me texting you because it's just, I don't think in our society we give room for moms or mothers to be able to let them tell you that they are not okay.
that part, yeah.
We don't give them room. because you're supposed to be a good wife, you're supposed to be a good mom, you're supposed to be a good daughter. And if you're not okay, then you need to be strong and stop being so weak, and or you'll get over it or whatever. So, and I just remembered, and I knew, and you are younger than me, but I just remember having that conversation, knowing that I know she's gonna be like, "Oh, I'm good," and I know she's not gonna be good, but I know that was the response that you're gonna have. So I just wanted you to be able to have that room to be able to say that and feel that.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm just happy that I was able to provide an opportunity and a space for that you can be able to analyze that. Yeah, I'm not okay. I'm feeling this shit. This is not. I'm sorry. I don't know if I'm allowed to curse,
No,
but I'm
please,
like,
it's fine. Yeah, I'll put explicit. It's not a big deal. Yeah.
okay, yeah. Like I'm feeling this shit. Like it
Yeah.
hurts. It
Mhm.
hurts. My body is not what it is. I
Mhm.
remember feeling like my body was alien to me.
Mhm.
Like I was just an incubator. Like it was like there was a point where like the kicking at first was exciting, but after a while was like like
Mhm.
where am I? Where am I in this whole process of being pregnant and being a mother? Where is Jessica? Where's my identity? And it was nowhere to be
Mm.
found. It was nowhere to be found.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think I was going through like a little bit of depression because I wouldn't take any pictures. I wouldn't, especially with the Bell's
Yeah.
policy and everything else. It was a really tough time for me. But I'm very proud. I don't know how I the Black Mom group
Yes.
was pivotal for me, even though my kids were a little bit older. But just
Mhm.
having women connect with me in that way, where they're connecting with me as, yes, we're moms, but we're connecting you as a woman and as an
Mhm.
individual. And that was so important. It really enlightened me in a way that I didn't think it was possible.
That's what it was. I didn't think it was possible either because I remember coming into the group and the founder, Brittany Miner, I'm gonna shout her
Mhm.
out. She incredible what she's
Incredible.
done for us in Black moms in Orlando. I remember coming into the Facebook group and it felt like a warm hug with a
Mhm.
warm chocolate chip cookie, like, and I'm on the beach, I'm doing all of these things at the same, like, it just felt like all of my favorite things at the
Mhm.
same time. Like the way that Brittany knows how to cultivate community
Mhm.
is it's next level. Like she's been ahead of her time. I am
Mhm.
incredibly thankful that you, Jessica, didn't gatekeep because you could have easily done that and be like, "What group? What are you talking about? You're pregnant. You got pregnancy brain." And just kept it moving. And then I'd be like, "Well, shit." Like I remember because Jessica would not shut the hell up about this group when I was
What
trudging
was I
along
doing?
with my pregnant self. You would always just talk about it. You were just like, BMO is so amazing. It's so amazing. I just remember hearing you say that. So when I came into the group and just how she guides you in the group and all of that and how
Mhm.
you can introduce yourself, mind you, like I used to be a lurker. I didn't like to comment or any of that stuff. But the way in that group, it felt like okay, it felt safe to like
Mhm.
say whatever I wanted to say. So this leads into the third question of, going back to what you said, like after you have the baby, because society makes it like what you said, highlights the birth. Like when you're pregnant, you are on like cloud nine. You get free food, you free everything. People hold doors for you, like things you just never would expect as a woman without a woman that's not pregnant, because like you wouldn't expect these things. But when you're pregnant, everybody's wanting to talk to you. It's all great. But then you give birth, and like you said, it's radio silence. So, society, says it takes a village to raise a child. What you kind of already kind of went into this, but I'll still give you space again to probably go more detail. What did your village look like? Because you mentioned a lot of things where you were at the hospital. Because Jessica, like you said, has 3 kids, so you were in the hospital with your one of the twins, and then you had 2 other kids. So who was watching the 2 other kids?
My mother. My mother. So my mother came into town, but then I was like, my hormones were crazy. Cause she was like, cause my mom does not have a filter. And she's like, I
Yeah.
kind of miss my bed. And it wouldn't, I went like it wasn't I went in a tizzy, but I was like, why would you say that to me right now, mom? Like I don't understand. Like it was, but again, she can miss her bed. Like it's okay. But
No,
it
but
was just
that I get what you're saying though,
yeah.
because what I hear you saying is, and I don't want to say it's like a Caribbean mom thing, but like they didn't get an opportunity to like really like process how to feel. So they just say shit. Like they really
Mm-hmm.
do. And then us, we're the millennials, we have too many feelings, whatever. But it's like, well shit, like you don't want to spend time with me. Like that's what it's like. You don't want to spend time with me. I'm at like this one of the most crazy times of my life where I need my mommy. Like I need my
Mm-hmm.
mommy, and you're saying you miss your bed? Like I can see. Well, I understand though what she is saying though
You
when
were
she's. Mm-hmm.
because I was like, but also she was the
Mm-hmm.
one that because we had a toddler. I think Jeremiah was like two and a half.
Wow.
So she was taking care of Jeremiah. It was a lot. Like honestly, like it was a lot. And then my husband had to he had like a really fucked up job, but then he kind of went right back to work because they kind of like fired him while I was giving birth. Like they wouldn't give him the time off. It was a really bad time. So then he found another job, but now he had to stop immediately. Start, but he was kind of helping, and I was just really overwhelmed. And that's when I ended up having Bell's palsy. My mom was like, "Don't worry, just I'll take care of the babies. I know you don't." And I was like really invested in pumping, because my kids couldn't latch. But she's like, "Look, just pump. I will do the nighttime. You just need to go to sleep. Like, don't worry about it." And so that was a like sleep. Thank you, mom. That was like the best gift ever. And then I finally went to sleep and I woke up and my face didn't work. I went to go brush my teeth and I
Wow.
couldn't spit anything because my face was paralyzed. And I was like, see what happens when you sleep? Like it was just
Oh no.
I can't if I like a woman cannot rest. Like
Women need to rest. We need to
we,
rest,
we
y'all.
need to read to we need to rest. But I was like, oh my God. Like I thought I was having a stroke. Had to go to the emergency room. And they're like, no, mom, your body went through a lot of stress and you had Bell palsy. So I had Bell palsy for like 5 months. But I did have a village. And even with, I had my mother-in-law who would come every other 2 weeks, and my mom was there for like the first 2 weeks of my birth. But even with that support, it was not enough because like they would be gone Monday through Friday. And I
Oh.
still had to still had to wake up and I take my son to school, and it was just a lot. It was a lot. It was a lot. I again, I don't remember because I just kind of like shut. And Jeremiah was also still having therapy, so he still had his play
Mm.
therapy, interventionalist, speech therapist, like his doctor's appointments. He had heart surgery when he was in a hospital, so we still had to follow up with a cardiologist every 3 months. It was a lot. It
Mm-hmm.
was and then I decided to still be in school. I don't know, overachiever here. So it was just too much.
Yeah.
It was a lot. It was a lot. But I
So,
mean, honestly, even though it was a stressful time, I'm kind of grateful for it because I've learned so much,
mm,
and I can be a support for so many people because of what I've been able to like live through. So, um, and I still see the beauty. Like when I see my kids, when I see my
yeah.
children, and I look
Yeah.
in their eyes, it's just like a rush of everything
Mm-hmm.
we've been through together. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm.
I know. Unfortunately, I would definitely do it again. I don't know, but I would definitely do it again.
Wow. I don't think I would, but okay. I'm pretty sure I won't do it again. But that's really
No,
beautiful.
no, I would do that again, but not
What's
do
that?
it again. Like meaning, like just like if I was to go back in time, I would still choose
Uh,
them. You
oh
know?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. I thought you meant like the whole being pregnant, birthing, those
Nah, nah,
first
nah,
like
nah,
few months
nah.
post the first what year postpartum because it's like they call it the fourth trimester, like after you give birth, that is a trimester, everyone. Like I
Mm.
want you to know that. Like, and that goes so beautifully into be gentle with yourself. Because when we
Okay.
think of the three trimesters of when we're carrying the child, you know, it's like, yes, be gentle, ooh, ah, soft, all
But
this.
don't they
But
don't
then what happens, right? What happens once we give birth? We are not gentle. We are not gentle with ourselves at all. Um, there was stuff physically that I was doing because I had two C-sections, and I think it was my second C-section, if I don't remember. But I decided to pull the stove out. My husband was not home because if he was, he would have been like, what are you doing?" I decided to pull the stove out and deep clean the stove. Like, and I think this was after the 6 weeks because, you know, it's like 4 to 6 weeks recovery, regardless if you have
wow.
vaginal or C-section.
Mm.
Here come me pulling out the stove and just start cleaning. And that was just an example that I want to share with you all because I was not, that was me physically not being gentle with myself, but it all starts in the mind. Like it all starts in the mind. So I don't remember what I was saying, but I know it boiled down to that I wasn't doing enough. I wasn't doing enough. Mind you, I'm still in that fourth trimester. Like I'm still a new mom, but I was a new mom. Okay, my
Mm.
kids were months. Well, my daughter, it's all blur, but they were babies, right?
Right.
They were
And
babies.
we don't speak about the fourth trimester a lot because like your body's changing too. Like your hormones, like all those
Mm-hmm.
pregnancy hormones are still there. You give birth and it's like it kind of gently goes
Yeah,
back down. So like you're still experiencing like some people are having hair loss,
right.
discoloration of color. Um,
Mm.
I even was asking Lesline, I'm like this like I thought the second I gave birth I would stop chewing ice. It did not. I still
That's a
wanted
good.
to chew ice, and I was like, "What the?" I was
Mm,
still throwing up and having hyperemesis after I gave birth. It
mm,
just doesn't like stop like that. So
right. It's
they
society though. It's how we are conditioned in society because it's like once you give birth, you're also that's a whole nother conversation. But you know, a lot of people I had to go back to work 7 weeks. After
it's not
seven
enough.
weeks, I had to go back to work. So
Not enough.
I honestly the 7 weeks the 6 weeks, so it was the seventh week I had to put my son into daycare. Felt like the shittiest mom ever, to be really honest with you all, because I'm quote unquote living the dream. I'm a registered nurse. I own my own home, but then at the same time, I don't own my time. I don't own my time. And I had to go right back to work. And I remember I would drive. I think Jessica might remember this. I would leave, go breastfeed, like hold him so
Mm-hmm.
I could breastfeed him during my lunch break and then drive all the way back and like rush. I would rush to
Oh
do
my
that.
god.
And it was hard. So like, and then I'm like, but why this? Why this? Like I'm having all these different thoughts and I'm like, why can't I get my shit together? And like Jessica said, it's like you are still have all of these pregnancy hormones. Like I was only 7 weeks postpartum and I was putting all of this pressure on myself. I was not being gentle with myself out. Like how I was talking to myself, I didn't even know that I could like, you know, reframe my thoughts. Okay, everyone. Like, and this was only 5 years ago. I didn't know that I could reframe my thoughts. So that's the biggest thing I want you all from this episode to get is like being gentle with yourself starts with what are you saying up here? For those that are watching, I'm tapping, you know, or that are listening, I'm tapping my brain. Like, what are we telling ourselves mentally? And that can be a challenge as a new mom because head is down, you're focused on breastfeeding, the baby never latches. Like I feel like that's more common of a problem than the
Mm-hmm.
baby actually latching.
Mm-hmm.
Babies never latches. You are crying all of the time. Like these are all normal things, right?
Oh, and don't you
Um,
forget like even the emotions of envy, right? Because like why? What am I? Why am I not good enough? Why is the baby not latching? Why is my baby colicky? Why is like it's like you internalize everything, and it's just got to be like I can only do as best as I can. I can only control what I can control, and that's it. Like I think that has always been it's become a mantra to me. Like I'm only gonna control the things that I have the ability to do. So, and that's it because you know what? I have a colicky baby. I'm gonna accept that. That's it.
Right.
Sometimes we cry
And
together, but it's okay.
yeah, exactly. Sometimes you and the baby are both crying because like it's stressful. And
Mm-hmm.
I like that you brought that up because yeah, we attach like why is the baby's colicky because I ate the cheese and then I breastfed them. The baby's colicky because this and that. Okay, the baby's colicky, but you're not a shit mom. Like you're not you were nourishing yourself. You were eating that cheese because you were hungry and that was the one thing you could eat in the short amount of time. Like it's just there's so much with mom stuff in the beginning. It's like you got to do this, you got to drink all the, you have to stay hydrated and all of these things. But if you have limited resources, if you have limited help, like because me and Jessica are both blessed to have support those that even up until now with our kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people, some people don't
Mm-hmm.
have that support. So for those people, like those single moms that are watching or listening, like be gentle with yourself too. If not, be so gentle with your like because you are doing the job of like 10 people.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I really honestly I think our ancestors had it right. They they were in a village. They had a commune, and we would help each other raise our children. America is we have a society that's very individualized, and I think we are
Yeah.
coming to the point where we're coming back where we're like, damn, I think we do so much better communal,
Yeah.
and that's why even with the Black Mom group, it wasn't all of that, but it was a small piece of it, and
Yeah.
it was so big because that's how desperate we need that. And I think if you are able to, connect with like-minded individuals, um, and find a community, and so that you can have that support. Like even with my kids now, it's like, hey, with some of my friends, are you having a tough time? Do you need a day? Hey, I'll have your kids sleep over. That's fine.
Yeah.
You need a date night with your husband or
Right.
something, just a release. Like, and we
Yeah.
have to use each other in order for us to get centered, and we can't be embarrassed to ask for those things.
That's the part. That is the part that I want to get across because this is a podcast dedicated to new mothers. And those first 2 weeks are they're wild. It's the wild, wild west. And know that in those know that as you are discharging from the hospital, if you are in the hospital or even if you have a home,
A
whatever
birthing
you
center.
do, birthing center, pull up the phone and say, I need you at my house. You don't have to have an agenda. Just say, I just had a baby. I need help. And you don't
Mm,
have to know what the help is. Just
right.
call somebody, text somebody. Maybe you're just by yourself in a state and like in a you're by yourself in a state and you don't have anybody else in that state. At least send a text to somebody like, hey, I just had a baby. I don't know what to do. Like it's okay to say you don't know. Just because you had a kid does not mean you know less actually. So for
Mm-hmm.
whatever reason, once you give birth, you know less. Like it's just like it's just I don't know. For me,
and baby
that's how it
center
felt.
and baby center used to be pivotal, and I'm like, y'all saying contradicting stuff. I don't know what is happening.
Yeah.
I that is a goal of mine, and we talked about like eventually. I don't know how that can materialize, but I wish there was a place for us, like for new moms, especially for moms of color, and just
Yeah.
being because honestly, yeah, we grew up in the Caribbean. Our parents still had that support in a way, you know what I mean? And America didn't. That was really tough. But they grew up with either tons of siblings or aunts and uncles and cousins and this and that, and or you lived in a
That's
neighborhood that everybody knew.
true. That's
You
true.
know,
And then once they came here, it just cut off. It
it just
just
cut
cut off
off.
like that. That is so true because that's how when my parents explained, like especially when my dad explained growing up in Jamaica, like you could walk to your friend's house and like you would do all these things always together. It was always together. And then they come to the States and it's like, Marco, Polo, like where it's radio silent. So
Yeah.
we're gonna close up. We have two more questions.
Okay.
Next question, I like to keep it funky and just keep it transparent, but did
Okay.
you want to be a mom?
Um, no, not like growing up. I think I did
Yeah,
want to be a
yeah,
mom.
that's what I mean. Yeah.
Like growing up, I did want to be a mom, but I think I was like I wanted to establish myself as a career first. Like that was
Yeah.
something that I've always wanted, and I didn't really get to do that. I kind of did being a mom and establishing a career was happening at the same time. Um,
Mhm.
but I wasn't one of those people that grew up and like fantasize about being married and having a family and everything else. That was not my thing. Um, and then later on, I found the words for it. It was because this, and I still don't know how to answer this question. But I remember I can't. I think it was called the situational therapist. I think he's been canceled now. I'm not sure. Um, yeah, because he's kind of controversial. But he did ask a question about like, give me a reason that you wanted to be a parent that's not selfish.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
so even raising my kids, I have to give them a lot of grace because I'm completely opposite. Whereas my mom raised like you owe your life to me. Whereas
Right.
like I have to remember that they didn't ask to be here. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so I have to give them the autonomy to be the person that they want to be and kind of like learn how to navigate through life in a way that's probably going to be separate than what I want for them. I think I kind of disconnected myself from that aspect of like having all these expectations on my kids. Like I still have them, of course, but I still want to be. I want to guide them and provide wisdom, but I know I don't own them.
Right.
I was just a vessel for them
So,
to be to come to have a life. I was just their vessel. So when you think about like, do you want to be a mom or whatever? Like I think I kind of flip that now because I'm like, what reason would I want to be a mom that wasn't selfish? You
yeah.
know, you know. So
And that shifts perspective a lot. It does. It
mm,
makes you be like, oh wow. And it makes you be gentle, give grace, and like all of these things that we don't do enough as moms. Okay,
mm.
so last question. What advice would you give to new moms? You know, there's a new mom listening to this, and she is like, what the hell did I just get into? What advice would you give? What advice would you give her?
I mean, take the help. I know a lot of people get, but it's really essential. Like ask for help. Um, and even if you get a lot of no's, there's always gonna be one that says yes, and then just accept it. If someone's like, "Hey, I'm gonna bring you dinner," accept the dinner. If
Take
someone's like,
it.
"Hey," take it. If someone's like, "Hey, do you need me? Do you need anything?" You know what, sis? My laundry is really high. And if you don't mind, if you can help with that or or whatever, and if you can afford it, if you can afford it, like I've come to the point now when I'm working, like housekeeping has to be part of my budget because it gives me time for myself that I
Mhm.
need in order for me to be stronger,
Mhm.
in order for me to function, for me to be a better mom, a better wife. I need to be released of chores.
Mhm.
You know, if you can do it, then do it. Take the help, take it. Now, I know there's going to be people in situations like I don't have the help. Well, then you know what? That one day you're just gonna have to sit, like relax, take moments for yourself, give yourself grace, and just try your best to put yourself first. That's the only thing I can say. And even I know that even with that, that's a luxury, you know?
Yeah, no, it is. It really is, especially if you're a single mom, single parent.
Mm,
You have to be really intentional about taking that time. Like anytime somebody says, "You good?" like text you or whatever, you say, "No, I'm not." And you don't even have to, because I know when you see that text coming in or that call coming in, you're like, but I don't have the agenda for them, or I don't know what I need help with. If they are somebody that has your best interests at heart, they will know what they can help with. They will know,
mm,
they'll be like, okay, I can do X, Y, and Z. You know what I mean? So it's like learn, like it's just you just have to first do the first step of asking, just asking for help. That's wonderful advice, Jessica.
mm.
Well, that's it. That's the first episode of season two. Talking about being gentle with yourself. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Make sure you, like this, comment, subscribe, all of the things, and we'll see you in the next episode.